Hey, Nathaniel is already in the chat. Also, welcome, Dale and Nikori. Good to see you both here. Just turn out the music a little bit. Let's make sure that everything is properly set up. I think we're good to go. No, see? That's what you get. Just jinxing it. Here we go. Welcome, welcome, welcome for another portfolio review. This time we have, who do we have? We have Shubham, we have Nathaniel, and we have Chris K. Hold up, let's see. In what order are we doing this? Okay, Nathaniel's first, then Chris, and then Shubham. That's the way we're doing it. Nice. Let's move this stuff to the side a little bit. Hope everybody's doing well. It's been a pretty good day so far. I think my day, somewhat weirdly enough, just now beginning because I had like a very long morning. So went out for a long walk, did all kinds of other stuff, and now I'm basically getting into work. I mean, I've been working for a couple of hours, but it's kind of weird, like how different my schedule is now, in a nice way, you know. I'm not complaining here. Nathaniel's doing good. That's awesome. I'm doing good as well. Thank you so much, Nathaniel. Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm doing a lot of admin work at the moment, which is like looking at some systems that I set up before, trying to schedule meetings with people from Beyond Extend to set up some new stuff. So I think currently, so there's one thing that we have in progress with Adam, which I mentioned in like the previous monthly update, which I'm gonna do in like the next couple of days as well. So that's something that I'll need to take care of. Like the monthly update, I mean. And then I've been thinking about launching one thing in the immediate future, and then one thing over like the near future. But that one thing in the near future is going to be a little bit more involved compared to the other one. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, the first one, the one that I want to launch in the near future, I don't want to do it like too mysteriously, right? I'm just basically thinking about setting up like regularly occurring like work together meetings, or like work together, or like work along kind of gatherings, right, where people can just join in through the day. We kind of work together, kind of get a little bit of feedback, kind of get like inspiration and ideas going, and then kind of do that on like a regular basis. And maybe I'm thinking about maybe having like multiple slots to kind of cover time zones a little bit. Because honestly, I've been doing this for like, I'll jump into like the workroom chat like regularly, right? Like maybe at least once a day, let's say. Or at least like a couple of weeks for sure. But it would be nice to just get like some dedicated event going on, right? To like also introduce like a lot of the new people that have come in as well. So yeah, that's going to be launched in the immediate future. Got a whole bunch of people in chat. Christian, Max, Unbreakable, Keraf is here as well. It's awesome to see you all here. Welcome, welcome. Dale is saying that sounds awesome. Yeah, I think it was long overdue, you know, instead of like just popping in and like hoping that people like randomly jump in with you too. Like, let's make it a proper thing, right? And then it becomes like, I don't know, community's time to hang out or something like that. Sounds like it could be fun. Yeah, I think so. I think so. I love the username. YouTube Video Enjoyer. Joined the community yesterday and it's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. And Brigitte is saying, and that sounds like it could be fun. Yeah, I think so. I think so. Anyway, that was a little update. I'm gonna do like a proper video update about all the stuff that we're thinking about, and like also like to recap like our latest team meeting that happened last weekend. And I'll put that in a nice video for you all. That's coming over the next couple days, depends when I have time. Yeah, you'll see that soon enough. That's not why we're here though. We're here to look at some beautiful portfolios and get some feedback going. Where's my little post-it? My portfolio review post-it. Add that on the screen again. So, we have 3 people here today. 3 people from the community today. And we're going to be starting out with... let's see. We're going to be starting out with Nathaniel. I apologize in advance if I'm butchering any names. Sorry. But yeah, we got Nathaniel here, we got Chris, and then we also got Shubham. So we're gonna start out with Nathaniel. Yeah. So first of all, like I usually have like a set sort of routine, you know? So the routine is something like I'll go over like the general impressions, right? Then try to break down like the overall impressions a little bit, and then we'll dive into the work. And I'll try my best to stick more towards like the portfolio review side rather than critiquing your work, right? But I'll maybe drop hints here and there. So yeah, first impression. Like it. I like the banner that you have going. And that's from your oldest piece as well, right? Okay. I also like that this corresponds with what you're putting out, right? So like it's environment art all the way, which is good. Very good. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think I've clicked on anything. But let me Let me just refresh. Yeah, so you land on environments. Okay, so what's the... Oh, there's no difference. Okay. Maybe you were hiding some sneaky props or something like that, right? You never know. But it's all just environments. I gotta say, I need to keep in mind where my head is at, right? I like this thumbnail. Looks really nice. This one, I'm curious if we can get maybe like some better angles. I don't know what the environment looks like, right? But maybe we can get like some closer up shots or something like that. And then this one is also quite nice. But I think this is definitely my favorite one though. Like this one here. And I think for maybe the one on the right, it feels like in terms of contrast and like the use of colors, right? I think the foreground looks way more interesting than the actual focal point, right? Because it has like more saturation and more colors, and it has like a nicer vibe towards it. Where if you, I don't know what the environment looks like, right? But like if you want to draw attention to like the main piece, that's kind of the way that you have to do it, right? Like you kind of want to flip what we have currently, where it's kind of like the thumbnail on the left, right? Where the foreground and the background like kind of is like a little bit like uniform in terms of colors, and then like the main silhouette of the building like really stands out compared like all the rest, right? Because you kind of have like some foreground elements, but you can't really see what they are, right? I mean that in a way of like the colors and like the contrast, right? There's not that much contrast there. But then you have like a heavily like silhouetted object with like a lot of contrast with these like god rays coming through, right? And then you have like a pretty uniform background again. In a good way, right? We could maybe spend a little bit of time talking that the god rays are maybe like a little bit too intense and kind of don't feel like they're soft enough to like really blend in, but that's like a minor thing. Then you have like the background, which is like quite uniform. So in that way, the thumbnail for this one like really stands on its own, because the focus is on the object, right? Like through the silhouette and then also through the contrast of things too. So keep that in mind. So still don't know how to pronounce silhouette or like write it, so that's like a consistent thing in my streams, so don't worry about it. So silhouette and contrast. Okay. It's gonna be very nice compared to this one, where we could probably do some tweaks to make like the thumbnail stand out a little bit more. Either in Photoshop or like in the environment itself. But I'm assuming that this is probably also like the older one out of all of them. So maybe you don't want to do that, right? I know how it is. That's why I'm saying maybe in Photoshop you can do some quick tweaks to kind of make some stuff stand out more. But yeah, that's all nice. I like it. Let me just quickly check out some of this other stuff that I usually skip on over. Got a demo reel. Let's check that out as well. Oh. Wait, hold up. It's probably because I'm already in full screen. Oh no, it just doesn't want to do it. Okay. That's from 2022, right? Oh, and that's like the sci-fi environment. Interesting. Okay. I mean, it's pretty long. Oh, that's my older demo reel? Gotta make sure that your portfolio's updated. Come on. But yeah, I think just a quick couple of notes here, right? I think how do I say this, right? Because this might be like a personal bias. Like, I don't really care about like videos like this myself, right? Especially because this is more like a showcase, not really like a demo reel necessarily, right? Because we're not really seeing breakdowns or like any sort of like interesting technical stuff, right? It's more about like, hey, these are environments that I've made. Cool. And it's 2 of them for like 2 minutes. I'd rather spend that time. Imagine that I'm looking through like a whole bunch of different applications, right? I would rather spend that time. I will probably do what I did here, right? It's like, okay, I'll skip through it. Cool, I know that it's going to be 2 environments, and I'll kind of click through to the interesting parts. And that's the way that I would look at it, right? Not saying that everyone does this, but if you want to stand out at scale, right, which is usually what like finding a job is, right? You want to stand out compared to the other people in the job market. You got to really focus on like more bang for your buck, right? Like this video needs to be like a minute max, let's say, for an example, and it needs to be like super catchy, have like a lot of information. It kind of needs to convince me that you know what you're doing, right? In general, I don't think I've ever even done like a demo reel myself. It's not that it's bad, right? I think it could be nice. You just have to think about like how you package it. And maybe you've already done some of this too, because you were just saying that this is your older demo reel. Cool. Nice one. Like a advertisement thingy going on. Oh, we've got some blog stuff going. I'm probably not going to spend too much time here, but I think a blog is always nice to showcase like the additional stuff, right? The way that I would look at it is I'll look through your work. Like if I was looking at your CV in like a professional setting, right? Or like your portfolio in a professional setting. I would look at your portfolio first, and then if I'm interested in your work, I'll probably dive into your blog and kind of see how you made stuff. Yeah, don't really want to spend too much time here, right? Last update is also a year ago. I mean, not that it's bad, right? But I'm looking at that date as in, is it relevant to the work, to your most current work? Let's say that. Let's go back to the work. Let's start with this one. Yeah, so that's a render we've seen before. This is so interesting. While we're doing this, let me catch up with the chat as well. Keep that in mind. CDT, that's great. I just managed to fix some UV issues on my model. Thanks to someone in my team. I need to find out. Oh, nice. Glad you got it fixed. And then Sanad is coming in as well. Hope you're doing well, man. Love the content. Thank you so much. And then Bullborb is here as well. Nice to see you all here. The reason why I was saying this is interesting is because the thumbnail, right? If you look at the thumbnail, like the thumbnail is pretty generic sci-fi stuff, right? Which is a very common trope in like everyone's portfolio. I've had it too, so not a big surprise there, you know. But I feel like having a shot that is almost more something like this, right? And I know that usually when I give feedback, you know, when I give feedback, I say like, oh, when in an environment, like you kind of want to surprise people, right? You kind of want to focus on the detail, and then they open it and it's like, ooh. But no, I think this could be like a better thumbnail. Because the reason why I say so is because it's not necessarily like a stereotypical like sci-fi corridor anymore, right? Where at this point, like it looks like a full environment rather than just like a bunch of sci-fi people put together. Not to talk bad about your work, right? But that's, if you've seen like a lot of these sci-fi corridors, like they kind of start blending together because, I mean, it's just sci-fi corridors, right? Unless you do like a whole bunch of designing on top and make it really stand out. But this could be like an interesting thumbnail instead, showcasing more of the environment. Nathaniel is asking, I'm going to rework my sci-fi environment, so any feedback is appreciated. I'm gonna keep these streams to the portfolio side. If you're doing that rework, like make use of our Wednesday streams. Every Wednesday, I give feedback to like any work that you currently have in progress. So feel free to add your work there. Acid breakdown 2, that's the exterior door. The door frame. These are pretty good, you know? Like in terms of portfolio presentation, right? Like this is pretty good. Especially in terms of like the amount of visual information that you're trying to give us, right? You have like the wireframe, and then you have just like the model itself, and then you have like your textures here with the UVs, right? So I kind of like how that is split up. I think I'm personally not a big fan of laying the textures out in this way because we can't really see the textures at full size or like in its entirety, right? And it's kind of just like a snippet or a cutout of an asset. So that might be one where I would probably split that up. And maybe go for a layout that kind of fits within that, right? So maybe you have like, I don't know, like a long strip at the bottom or something like that, where you have your UV first, and then you have your base color, metalness, roughness, normal, all that kind of stuff, like in a row, right? And then you would just have, what would that look like? You have something like this. Reserve the bottom for like your UVs, and then like all your different textures, right? And then you could have like your wire here, and then your acid here, and then just add your name, like, I don't know, at the bottom here or something like that, right? So that would be the wire. This would be the model. This would be UV, and then this would be texture stuff. Like the layout, you can change that however you want, right? Like the main purpose why I'm suggesting this is just because I want to see like more of the textures, right? So the way that you lay it out is completely up to you. This is just like a quick suggestion. But yeah, it's totally up to you. And also one thing, maybe for next time, if you're doing a wireframe, which is super nice, love to see it. Also try to include the poly count in it as well. Unless I missed that, but I don't think so. Because that's honestly the only thing that's missing from this awesome breakdown is just the poly count. Right? And then like splitting up the textures is more like what, like visual convenience or like user experience, right? Like getting more information in like a smaller frame. Yeah, but this is looking nice. UVs are nice and filled out as well. Love to see that. There's probably a lot of stuff that can be straightened. Well, no, they look pretty clean though. Maybe, oh, those are probably those panels. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's nitpicky, right? Because you're doing a good job of like all the other ones, but like there is a section that you could potentially straighten out here. Well, nah, it's probably not necessary if it's a curved surface. Never mind. Yeah, these guys, they have a little bit of flex. Again, probably be straightened a little bit. Now talking about like the overall post, right? There's a lot of information in here. It might be interesting. Because let's see, right? So we have like the video, then we have like the interior, we got the 2 breakdowns, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's not necessarily bad, but it's getting to a point where it's becoming quite a lot to take in, you know? So maybe some of the smaller stuff, you could combine that onto like a couple of sheets together, right? But if that becomes like too hard, or if that's like a struggle, maybe not worth it, because I mean, all the information is still gonna be there, right? Oh my god, this cable is just pure white. Is it so dense in Geo? This is actually one thing. Quick feedback for if you're trying to rework this scene, make the cable like stand out a bit more, right? Like, because the cable currently feels like pretty flimsy. What I would probably do is just thicken it up and like try to connect it to like places where it makes sense as well, right? Because now it kind of goes from like one metal panel to like another one. Yeah, try to think about that next time if you're doing like the rework. Mario Lopez is saying color value separation and distribution need work. When the messages stacked together, it's difficult to get a read of the primary shapes. I do agree. So I'm staying away from like giving art feedback, right? So I'll probably give that feedback, or like feedback like that in my Whip Wednesday reviews. So we're sticking kind of more towards like the portfolio review. However, don't let that stop anyone from in the chat saying something like the good feedback that Mario just gave, because I do agree with that. Last thing before we move on. You've created... Oh no, sorry, don't worry, Mario. I realized that I didn't want to pick you out and that we're not doing anything like that. Because that's totally fine. I'm just saying that I won't be doing it during the stream, right? The last thing that I'll say here is put it in the actual environment, right? Just simplify the environment, just have like a base plane with maybe some rocks on the side or something like that. Put in simple environment. Because you have a cool environment, right? You might as well make the breakdowns like a little bit more interesting as well. The only thing that you have to keep in mind there is you need to keep it quite simple, because you don't want to overwhelm like the breakdown shots too much, right? But like some simple backdrop can actually help wonders in selling, like visually selling the breakdown, because that's what we're doing, right? As artists, that's all we do. Yeah. Overall, really good though, you know? Really, really nice. I like, you know, you got the video, you've got like the interior shot, you've got like the breakdowns, you've got like the textures, you've got all that sort of stuff. I think the content that you have is in a really good place. I think, sorry, one last thing. If we're talking about the presentation, right? I would probably, and this is kind of where my graphic design, well, background, like a student background comes in a little bit, right? And also doing some of the design stuff, like most of the design stuff for Beyond Extend as well, is try to simplify like these elements of like purely like the door parts and like your name, right? Try to keep it super simple to and just let the work itself pull all the attention and stay away from like, I don't know, this is a pet peeve, right? But like some of the overly designed elements that make it look sci-fi, but they're like stereotypical things, right? Like the 45-degree corner. That's like first sci-fi angle, right? So what I would probably do instead is just have it like really clean. Maybe do the stereotypical of having like a border on the bottom. Or yeah, try to do something else, right? I mean, the spectrum is so broad of what you can do. I just want people to stay away from like the stereotypical things, right? Like this corner. Like look at maybe like sci-fi movies, like very clean sci-fi movies and how they present stuff, right? And maybe take some elements from that instead of like the stereotypical tropes. I know, very specific, but I would say smaller font. Smaller font, no stereotypes. So yeah, smaller font, no stereotypes. And then maybe I'll leave that up to you. I'm gonna leave number 3 as an optional. Another font. Hello Beyond Extent and all. Have a nice live stream. Great content for a 3D environment artist ever. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, but this is something that you can kind of go into like all directions, right? So I don't want to necessarily say like, hey, use this font or do this thing. I would say always look at it in like a very like artistic way, where what we want to have the focus on is the work and the breakdowns. And then people, if they're interested in the work and breakdowns and they want to contact you, that's kind of where they need to find your contact information really quickly, right? So I would probably have it like, I don't know, like even half the size. And also add your email in there too. Right? If your email has your name in it, you don't even have to add your name in it. You can just use your email and then just say like, you know, like door parts here. You could say like, what's the name? Give it like a name, right? Like, I don't know. Can be very stereotypical, I guess. So let's say this is unit like 73, right? Or like, I don't know, unit 21 or something like that. Whatever you come up with, right? And then you can say here, like unit 21 doors, and then over here you go with, let's just do name, right? Do something like that and just keep it like very small. Keep the focus on the work. And yeah, come up with an interesting name here as well. Something that gets people excited, right? Like try to sell them a story. Like try to sell them something. Like why is this here? Like what's the story? Like try to sell me on something, right? Rather than, hey, this is a sci-fi door. Like it's kind of boring, right? Like give me a story that I can latch onto. Okay, that was seriously the last thing. Let's move on to go back to your main page. I want to see the comparison between these two. Using Vimeo, interesting. The annoying thing about video is that it doesn't autoplay, right? Oh, wait. Like it? I like it. Like, the devil's really in the details, right? Like, what I'm... Oh, I'll go full screen for some reason. What I like is that the font is also different, right? Like, the font is very... Like, it's not your stereotypical font. Journey plunged the land into darkness. Interesting. Okay. Like what's going on here, like a little bit of storytelling, right? Like the stuff that we just talked about. A little bit of storytelling going on. It is... There's a lot of moving parts in the story, right? And you don't really have that much to showcase like what happened in the story visually. Because like usually what you want to do is show, don't tell, right? So like all the context here, like I love the story that you're putting into it, right? Like don't get me wrong, because I do really like that you realize that, hey, I need to do something else. I need to make this deeper, right? I need to make this more gripping. So I love that you realize that. It's just that usually with the first couple of tries, right? Like it's very difficult to figure out like a good way of doing that visually. Because without that text that we just read, I wouldn't really know what was going on here, right? So yeah, let's okay. Oh, interesting. You don't... I would have the final screenshot on here as well. So because you have the video, right? And then you have like the reference sheet. Okay, let's make some notes here. Where are we gonna draw? So number 1, move ref down. Right, and then number 2 is add the final image. Because... Hi Populous, hi Joe, how are you both doing? Because, yeah, the ref here doesn't really make sense, right? Like, I'm like, wow, this is a cool video, right? I love the video presentation that you're doing here. It's so nice. And then it's like, oh, I'm already in like the... I mean, the boring part, right? Like, I enjoy this part, but like, you kind of want to keep going with like... This is the video, this is the final shot, maybe some additional shots, then the progress GIF, and then you do the breakdowns, right? So you're kind of making a transition from like, this is my art, this is a story that I want to tell, and then you move down like in a gradual, like as gradual as you can towards the breakdown stuff, right? This is awesome though. Very nice. It's always nice to see like little breakdowns, you know, of like how did you set up like all the textures, like all the materials, like all that good stuff. Super cool to see. Some cliffs, got moss clumps. Some nice cliffs. I like this. This is also a good way of rendering it. Just to have like the wireframe on top of it, very contextualized. I really like this. That's awesome. Using RGB masking. Cool. Showcasing like advanced techniques, right? That's really awesome. Great job. But how Mikael is coming in and saying, how do we show mythology through the environment when sometimes we know the mythology from the sculptures and reliefs? Yeah, I think there's a distinction between the two, right? Like there is like the immediate story that you want to tell, and there's also like the deeper story that you want to tell as well. Like that's where, for example, the sword kind of comes in, right? Like the sword is just here, but why is it here, right? It has no connection to like the story just purely by visuals, right? Because you're absolutely right. Like I think having a combination of the two, that's where depth really comes from, right? Where you don't only want to sell a story, but you want to sell the world that is lived in. But I mean, very tricky to do in like one scene. But yeah, if you really wanted to go that far, right? Like if you really want to focus on the mythology and all that stuff, then you gotta make sure that like all the sculptures, like they kind of mean something. Right? Because you can't just take like sculptures that we kind of know in the real world and then like use them for a different purpose, right? Because that's where our world conflicts with the world that you're trying to set up as well. So I love that you brought this up, right? And I absolutely agree, but it needs to be a combination of the two. Or like showcasing what happened here, right? Like, because it was like the story of what is it? Oh, the stupid bar gets in the way. So the king got killed by its own offspring, right? With this sword. And then he got left with an empty temple. Well, like a war for succession followed, right? So like all the children kind of like fought for like a place on the throne. But like it kind of doesn't seem to connect. You know, like there can be a sword there, but like the sword has no direct reference to what happened at this temple and why specifically this temple, because it doesn't really look like a civilization was here at some point necessarily too, right? So if you can really go into depth with all this stuff. But I think what you want to establish, in my opinion, is like an immediate story, something that you can see visually to a certain degree, and then like really delve into it, right? Like with the storytelling as like a secondary layer. But then, yeah, like all the sculptures and all that stuff needs to be like in line with the mythology that you're setting up, right? But yeah. Let's have a look here. This is nice. Little bit of rotation, little wireframe going on top of it. That's super cool. Foliage breakdowns. Cool stuff. Hey, Antonio. Yeah, and I'm doing good, Joe. Thank you for asking. Yeah. I think again some of the previous things apply here, right? Let me write some of them down. We already talked about like adding a final image. Number 3 is putting things into context, right? So adding it into their actual environment. And this is breakdown stuff, right? So when you do like a breakdown like this, you have some cool landscape stuff that you can probably just like build like a small scene with, or like just quickly like dress something with, right? I think it always shows better that way. The poly count. But other than that, I don't think... Let's see, because I love this presentation. You know, like this presentation where it flicks between the two, you can see the textures and then you see the wireframe coming on top of it. Like, looks so awesome. Doo-doo-doo. Oh, sorry. I missed your question before. How do they work? Do you have to post your portfolio at a certain time to have it reviewed? No, I'm going through the backlog, right? So people can post it like every week, but I'm going through like a backlog and I'm doing like 3 people like at a time. But you can always submit your portfolio, like at any time. You'll just be added to the list, which is... let me just share that list as well. How to do that? I just updated it today as well, so hopefully it works a little bit better. But this is where you can submit your portfolio if you're not in the community, right? If you're in the community, just drop it in the portfolio review channel. And if you're not, then just add your ArtStation there. Yeah, like I was saying, I love the breakdown otherwise. Like, I love this post. Just a couple more images, right? Because you have like the nice video. Add like the final image for sure. And then a couple, maybe more shots, right? Like a couple of detail shots. Let's say 2 shots or something like that, right? It doesn't really matter, but something more. Yeah, no. I really like the environment though. Looks really nice. And I like that you're going for yeah, for storytelling, right? Like very nice transition from like your previous work onto like storytelling. Again, love that move. So great job. Okay, let's move on to the last thing here. Do this up as well. Oh my god, the vibrating grass. Sorry, that just took me by surprise there. It's from last year. Okay. House establishing shot. These look nice. I like the colors on them, like a lot. Little pottery as well. Like that. Stone and rock model sheet. Yeah, those bits of foliage look really nice. Some of these are like really, really dense, right? Like... dense geo. Like that you got everything covered on an atlas as well. Oh. What? Okay, so these are 3 separate unique textures. Okay, I wanna make sure. Let me just quickly check something, right? Yeah, you know all this advanced stuff. I'm just wondering why you didn't use just tilables and trim sheets. Because you know about like the RGB masking. Well, you know about that now. Maybe that's because you learned so much in between. Because that's like a little weird. It's not necessarily bad. Well... Yeah, it's my old work. I was thinking so. So this is where it gets interesting, right, Nathaniel? Learned a lot from this community after that. Awesome. Yeah, so the question what I'm going to right now is, if you have an older piece like this, you have to decide at some point when it is a bad thing to have it on your portfolio and for what reason you still have it on your portfolio, right? Because if you still have it on your portfolio because it's old work and you kind of love it, right? I would put it somewhere, like either unpublish it or put it in a different folder saying old work or something like that. Because I mean, everyone that does a little bit of looking, right? Seeing that, hey, posted last year and is going to look at the house, for example, that is fully made unique, right? They might make the same assumption that I'm doing, right? But you can never be sure. So what I would do is I would, just ask yourself, like, maybe this is not worth keeping on here for now, or maybe just put it in a different folder. Because normally my immediate reaction here, instead of having one, I mean, you know this as well, right? So I'm pretty sure that I'm not saying anything new here as well, with all your new knowledge that you learned too. But like having 3 unique UV sets for a house that you can probably like easily break up with like tidables and a trim sheet, showcasing that you can make something scale, right? Because making one house, there's technically nothing wrong with doing it this way, right? If it has to be like really unique and all that stuff, but it's still better to do it with trim sheets and tidables, for example. And I don't know, you know, like for me, how would I say this? Like, to me, this is probably costing you a couple of points, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that you're not gonna, let's say I'm looking to hire for a job, right? I'm not gonna not give you the job, but it's gonna give you like a couple of points. Or like cost you a couple of points doing this approach. Or at least I'll question you on the interview, right? And you can't really risk that at that point. It's all about putting your absolute best forward, right? Because we're talking now, right? And I kind of had a hunch that this was old work, so you kind of know how to do it better right now. But if you have a recruiter or like an artist that's looking at your work and wants to offer you a job, they don't necessarily have that context, right? So you have to be careful of that one. And yeah, just put your best work out there. Because yeah, like that, like they always say, right? Like your portfolio is only as strong as your weakest piece. Because for better or for worse, that's the stuff that we always keep in mind, right? So I would say think about that. So let's do a little recap here. Recap. I think honestly, like the work that I've seen and like the breakdown that you've done are like in a really, really good position. I think there's only like a couple of things that I could come up with, right? And it was more like design and the font usage and also like the missing poly counts and also like the textures not showing, right? But I would say like the core is really solid, right? And that's what important. So breakdown improvements, but as I say again, like the breakdowns that I've seen today, really nice so far. So it's only like, let's say tweaks. Tweaks. And then number 2 is let's think, what did we talk about? Oh yeah. More stills, right? Or like show off the work a bit more before you dive into the breakdowns. Especially in the last one, right? Like your latest project over here. Like you had the video, which was awesome, and then you dive immediately like in the breakdowns. I think you can show off like a couple more angles or something like that. And like let people enjoy your work, right? And then go into the breakdowns. And then number 3 is, yeah, I think this is always a big point, right? Like decide when to cut. Slash old work, right? Because you can put it in a different folder. Like if you say to people, like if this had like a little thingy said like old work, that is a signal to other people. That is a signal to people that, hey, this is old work. I know that I've improved. I know that stuff on there is not bad, but you can still look at it to see where I've come from, right? And that's usually more than enough to give people a lot of context to let them know that you're not necessarily happy with it either, right? Hello, right one. Demonstrating optimization. Oh yes, that was in the house. Yeah, demonstrating scale as well, like with the house specifically, right? And then Nathaniel is asking, do you think I should just fix my old work or focus on creating new work? I would honestly always create new work. The way that I would do it, right, is quick fix for old work. And then second part is just work on like new work, right? That's the way that I would do it. Because you don't also want to get stuck into like a routine where you're just like remaking the same thing over and over again and like kind of spinning wheels. You don't want to do that either. So I would say quick fixes. Like for example, the house, I know that you can't do that in like a day, right? You're gonna need more time for that. So I would just leave that and indicate like, hey, this is old work, leave that there and focus on making new stuff. As an example of a quick fix would be this thumbnail, right? Like that thumbnail improvement, like that can be like very quick. So I would definitely think about that. And then, yeah, some of the other tweaks that we talked about, right? Like changing the names, adding a bit more story, like selling people on like what the actual environment is about, blah, blah, blah. Like all that kind of stuff. Relatively quick. So I would definitely do that. And then all the stuff that's going to take you a lot longer, do that in the next ones. Right? And what you decide takes too much time, that's totally up to you. Yeah, you don't want to be spinning wheels and just like fixing up like your old work constantly. I've never done that myself. I just kept on moving from like project to project. Yes, but thank you for posting your work, Nathaniel. Thank you for posting your portfolio. Honestly, I know that we focus a lot about like the negative stuff here, right? But your work is really solid. I like the progression that you're making as an artist. And I also love the care and thought you're putting into the breakdowns, right? The breakdowns were really solid already, which is something that you can't really see from like a lot of other people. So awesome work. Keep it up. And yeah, keep making new work. I'm curious to see what the next project is going to be. Got me really excited. So yeah, keep it up and thank you for sharing it again. Awesome. And we're moving straight on to our next guest. We got Chris over here. Hi, Chris. Let's see if Chris added anything. Well, technically it's just portfolio review, so I don't know if we need that much context. No, all good. Right. Interesting looking banner. Called environment / prop artist. Again, nice. That works because you got 9 environments and 16 props, so there's going to be a lot to dive into. Yeah, I'm curious. Right, so we can't necessarily look at the thumbnails, but I'm gonna look at the environment art ones. We're gonna see. Okay, a lot of stuff here already. I would say first thing here is thumbnail consistency. Right, like sometimes you have the black bars. Sometimes you don't have them. I would probably just say go for full frame pictures instead of like the ones with the black bars or whatever, right? Like I don't really mind actually, but just go for something that looks consistent. This is not really going to cost you like any points, right? It's just really nice to look at and shows that you care about like the visual look of your work and like the collection, right? Let's go into some actual work then. This is cool. Okay, we got the bamboo. So there's a lot going on here, right? Actually, have a look at the videos first. The atmosphere is really nice. Got some interesting camera work going on as well, like that. It's different, you know? It's not just like the fade in, fade out stuff. Some of the assets that I didn't end up using for the scene. So let me get some more context here. Foliage created by Speedtree, character from MetaHuman. What I'm trying to do now is just I want to get like an understanding of what you do and what is not made by you. I don't know if you're here, Chris. I don't think you are, right? But we'll just have to make some assumptions. So yeah, because it becomes pretty hard to like understand what you did and what didn't do, right? And I think that's one thing that we can already like make a note of, right? If you did make everything yourself, just say like, oh, everything's created by myself, right? It's totally fine. But I have the assumption that if you're doing like a lot, you're doing frequent updates, right? So like 2 months ago, 4 months ago, okay, this is getting like a little bit longer. Not that it's not doable, right? Don't get me wrong. Like you can do this stuff if you do it really smart. Yeah, but still be nice to get like a little bit more, right? Like a little bit more information as well. This one doesn't really have a breakdown of like the props necessarily, right? So let me just browse through them all, right? Because there's a lot to take in first. Okay, so we're getting some different styles as well. Also, this is from Vancouver Film School. Interesting. The reason why I say interesting is because that means... Does that mean that this is more VFX related than games? Let's zoom out a little bit. Let's see. No summary. There. Okay, so these are some of the props that we've seen before. A lot of reuse. You know, I think that's what not a lot of people do enough of, right? Is like making props and then reusing them as they make environments, right? So we can see that the blade here probably going to be the same blade as we see here, probably. Right? You're not going to necessarily model like a new blade, right? You just model new trinkets next to it. Makes total sense. Let's go for the random one here. Yeah, so this looks awesome, but doesn't have like any breakdowns, right? So hard to tell. Oh, got a wireframe. Yeah, that's pretty dense. Not too bad overall, but oh, it is a different blade. It's cool. Neat little prop. It's interesting that you try like a lot of different styles as well. Like we're going from realistic to stylized. I feel like you did realistic and then, well, sort of realistic, right? And then you kind of got bored of it, and then we're like, okay, I'm gonna try stylized next. And you kind of had like your experience with stylized for a bit with these two projects and these two props, and they might like align in timeline. But yeah, it shows versatility, right? So it's not a bad thing. Cool little pendant. Yeah, so this is not game ready stuff, right? I mean, it could be, but it's too dense for what it ideally should be for games. So that means, okay, okay, we're gonna have to do this in a different way. I think. Because let's make some notes, right? I'm just gonna make some notes over here. Because number one is no game art breakdowns, right? So currently it's really hard to like get an idea of where you want to be, right? Like, is it VFX or is it games? Because, well, right now it leans way more towards VFX from the hints that I'm getting. Rather than going the game art route, right? Number two would then be like indicate what you made. Because I have the feeling that if this is for like a VFX role, right, or like a film role, right, we're gonna have to look at number one, right? I want to see game art breakdowns, and that's probably also, I'm making an assumption here, but that might be where your speed comes from as well. So, not having to go through like all the sorry, like sometimes shitty things you have to do to get stuff to work for a game or like have it to be optimized for games loses you a lot of time. So yeah, that's what I would say. Like, it's currently really hard to like get a feel of where you want to be. No, wait, what you want to do. Because if it's for games, yeah, we're gonna need to see optimization, a couple of different workflows, right? Like knowledge of trim sheets. Do you know how to work with titleables? Do you know how to bake down an asset? I think baking down is probably not going to be that big of an issue necessarily, because you showcase that in like some of the props that I've kind of glimpsed at. But yeah, right now it feels very unclear where you want to be. Yeah, so I would let people like focus on like how you can like really visualize that, right? Like put your all into where you want to go and like put everything on the table. Because yeah, it almost needs to be like, that's number one, you know, like what do you want to do? And then if it is games, like we need more breakdowns and also indications of what you made and haven't made and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's why I said we need to do this in a different way, because there is currently a little bit of confusion as to what you want to do. Just reach your channel for the first time and find out what I'm looking at for a very beginner as 3D environment. That's awesome. An old question as a beginner: can I add the scene prop that that I remade following some courses to my portfolio? Yeah, you can. Just say that it is made for a course or like a tutorial or something like that. Just be transparent about it, and then you can add it to your portfolio. I will say that it's not necessarily too valuable. Like, the best thing that you can do is follow a tutorial, but apply it on something different than the topic of the portfolio tutorial. So for example, if they teach you how to make like a military radio, don't make a military radio, but like follow the tutorial based on something else, right? That kind of looks like a military radio, but it's different enough so that it can stand on its own feet. Or follow the tutorial first, publish that prop, like the radio, and then do something else by yourself, right? Like, show that you've really absorbed the learnings on your portfolio. Yeah, but back onto the topic of this portfolio then. I think, first of all, yeah, showcase me what you want to do. Because yeah, like what is here? So Maya, ZBrush, Unreal Engine, Painter. Okay, so you're doing it in a game engine. So you want to work for games, I'm assuming. Right, so Maya, SpeedTree, and Unreal Engine. Comments have been disabled. Why? Also, hi Hendrik. Yeah, because I mean, like visually, right? Like the work looks really awesome, right? I love the work that you put out. It's just, we need to know more, right? I want to know, like, let me see. Let me look at some of the props again to make sure. What haven't we looked at? So this is Substance Painter. Looks very nice, by the way. Okay, so we're getting a wireframe. This looks like a game art wireframe, right? It's not too dense. Certain parts where you would want it to be dense make sense. Yeah. So yeah, so for example, for this one, let's say I want to see breakdowns, especially from textures, right? So what do your textures look like? How many UVs do you use? Is it one UV? Right, like the amount of UVs, poly count. But these two are the important ones. Because a UV and the textures, they're gonna show me like how you laid out your UVs and if you can do it in an optimized way and that you understand what you're doing when it comes to baking down an asset, for example, right? Because right now, like I can make like a good judgment here, right? So we could have a look at it. And it is baked down because it's using like generators, right? So like all this stuff comes from like generators, so there is information there. But then if we start comparing, so let's say, yeah, the wireframe, I can't really do that much with it, right? Let's see, that has a couple of edges. It seems to have like a slight bevel on it, so I think the thing that I'm basically looking for, right, is be as transparent as possible, right? So currently what I'm looking for is, do you know how to bake high to low poly? High to low. Right, because right now we're doing a portfolio review. I'm kind of taking my time. We're looking through the renders. But if you're not stating that, right, or if you're not doing it in the breakdown, like, and if you have me guess as to what or how you approach this stuff, you're kind of out of the running, right? Because there's gonna be someone out there who like puts everything on the table and it's like, hey, look, this is everything. How you like it, you know? Because what this might also be and this could be the other option, right? Is that you just have like a higher density model and then just bake it down onto itself and then do all the texturing and all that stuff on top of it, right? So there's like a couple of things that kind of give it away that is more to like the high to low poly, right? For example, if you look here, I think it is. Yeah, if we look here, right? Like that's a screw that's been baked or added as a stamp, right? So, but let's assume that it's baked for now. Then I'm kind of wondering, cool, so if that is baked, then why are these edges, like on this orange thing, like super strong? Like it's almost like low poly geometry. Because if this would be like a baked prop, then you would give it like a little bit of a bevel. Right? So there's a hint. There's a hint here that you're not comfortable with high to low poly baking, but you're not showing it, right? Because yeah, you have like a couple like more sharp edges here. This one kind of has a little bit of a bevel on it, but we can't look at the wireframe to compare if it actually has a bevel, right? Let's see, what are some other areas? Yeah, like this orange thing like has super sharp edges. Like it's hard. It basically comes down to this, right? Like this question again, like, do you know how to bake high to low? Because all the stuff that I'm seeing here is not really convincing me at this point. And you might know, right? You might know. I just don't know. I can't tell from like the posts that are here. But not necessarily. I can make like an educated guess, right? But that's not gonna help your portfolio, right? Like your portfolio should be, hey, look, this is everything that I can do. Have a look at it. Rather than, yes. Yeah. Same thing here, right? Like super sharp edges where you would expect to see like a bevel. And then the ones that do actually have like a little bit of like wear and tear, those are actually the ones where a bevel is added in the geometry. What is that? Yeah, and this is just like a decimated version of the high poly sculpt, probably. That does indicate that you know how to bake though, right? It's just for an asset like this, you would probably want to do like a nice clean low poly. Especially when you're showing it off, right? If you, this is a tip for everyone, right? Like if you're not showing this thing off, like if you don't show the wireframe, I mean, even though we talk about like showing everything off in game art, right? But like for rocks, for example, I wouldn't necessarily show off the wireframe because a lot of them are going to be decimated and the wireframe is just going to look messy, right? So you could leave that part and you could not show it intentionally. But again, if you're doing that for everything, right, then yeah, it it raises more questions than it actually answers. I don't think we're gonna get like really that much further. Let me see if I missed some stuff here. Lighting. Leave material notes. So this is interesting, right? Because you're doing it for some assets. Like this has like a bunch of breakdowns. I mean, not all of it, right? And this looks to be like more VFX related stuff. Interesting. Might even be the wrong screenshot on that one. Just want to make sure that we didn't miss anything, right? And then we'll do like a little bit of a recap in the end. Hi Aladdin! Hi Shabam! How are you both doing? Oh, thought we had a Marmoset viewer. Yeah, I think this is more like VFX related, right? Like from last month. Yeah, that's also like really dense in topology, like this one, right? You can easily, especially with the rounded surfaces. Again, I think this is also VFX related stuff. Quickly going through all of them. Oh. Texture. Oh my god. Oh, I thought this was World Machine for a second. Oh my god. Cyberpunk Blade. Oh, sorry. Let's see. What does this axe say? Wireframe? Yeah. Blade itself is quite good, right? We're getting there, but then you have like really dense geo around like the spheres, right? Or like the little buttons. Okay, so I think that's all then. Okay, so I gotta sip my drink here. Let's do a little recap. This is an interesting one because I think, again, the main point here is games or VFX, right? That's the main question that I have here. And then when it comes to number 2, show breakdowns. Show a lot of breakdowns of your stuff, right? And this can account for both games and VFX, right? It doesn't matter. Like show us a little bit how you textured it, like that kind of stuff. And then number 3 is, I mean, it's kind of going in the same line, right? But like, showing confidence with workflows. What I mean by that is if you put your stuff out on display, right, and say like, hey, look, here's my high poly, here's my low poly, these are all the textures, this is the eventual poly count, like all that kind of stuff. The more you do that, the more you're signaling outwardly like, hey, I'm confident in what I'm doing. I'm confident that I can also be a part of your team, and I can bring the same knowledge to your team as well, right? So yeah, I would say that that's the biggest recap. I've had a lot of questions about this one, right? Also because I'm purely focused on games, right? Let's keep that in mind as like a big caveat at the end. Like all the stuff that I focus on is games. Right, so if this was like a VFX related portfolio and there was no question in your mind that you ever wanted to do games, then yeah, there might be like a misunderstanding or something like that as well. But yeah, but I don't think you are, right? Because then, I mean, how did you end up in like a game environment art community? I don't know. So weird. However, thanks for sharing your work though, Chris. I appreciate it. Let me know, you know, like either in DM, like add it onto your message, whatever you want to do. Like let me know what you think of it, and maybe give me some more context, right? Because this has been a very interesting one. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. And then we're moving straight on to the last one, which is going to be Shubham. Shubham is also in the chat. Happy to have you here. Let's have a look. All right, we're going to start out with first impressions. So, 3D environment artist. Hell yeah. Let's go. Got some environments, we got some landscapes, we got materials, we got an asset as well. Then we got some Adobe Illustrator ones. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, we're gonna start out with that, right? I think that's like a very easy thing to do. I would probably have all this like in a separate in a separate folder called old work, or oh, Aladdin. Actually, the guys from Flip Normals, who is a VFX artist, yeah, they actually gave the same tips as you did. Oh, okay. Oh, they looked at the same portfolio then. That's interesting. Yeah, so they might have been as confused as I am. But anyway, Shubham, put this in old work, or maybe other, right? Like not necessarily old work, but like others, right? I think others in this case might be a good one because it showcases that you have like other interests as well, right? Could be like a very interesting one. Or if you, because I think you have to pay for ArtStation to get access to like the folder system or whatever, right? Maybe it makes sense to maybe just unpublish them. Right? Because I mean, this is going to be like your 3D environment art portfolio, right? So this is kind of irrelevant to what you're trying to show off. My opinion. I still think they look cool, right? But they're not relevant to like what you're trying to put your portfolio forward as. So yeah, starting there. Other than that though, I like what I'm seeing. There's some interesting stuff that I want to dive into. Yeah. The materials, all very consistent. Apart from this guy, what happened here? I like that you have like all the spheres, right? And then you have just like the cylinder. Maybe it was an issue with like, I don't know, the tiling or something like that you didn't do it. But this one definitely sticks out, right? having it consistent is definitely gonna help here. Yeah, otherwise. Interesting. I am probably gonna start out with this prop over here. Oh. Oh no, I can't scroll. No. Okay, let's have a let's have a look. I know the pain. I know the pain of this, right? Like, it's so uncomfortable because I'm not a native English speaker myself either. But tries should be try, and then like, I don't know what that's even called, like a little slash. Just small stupid spelling mistakes, right? But I think they're actually important though, because oh, it's so stupid how much I wanna, if there was a percentage on this, right? I want to see how many people got rejected because they made like simple like spelling mistakes on their CV or something like that, because I can guarantee you it's gonna be a lot of people. Small thing. 5 texture sets, all 2K. Okay. So this is all unique then. Interesting. Same thing that I've been saying before, right? For this one specifically, breakdowns, right? Like, show me the game art. How did you split up like these different texture sets? I think 5 is a lot. I think 5 is a lot, but still put them on display, right? Like, maybe you made some like really interesting choices on how to decide to split them, right? So yeah, breakdowns, want to see them. Wow, for a spelling mistake. Yeah, Aladdin, like, if we zoom out, right? Like, for general advice for everyone here, the job market is tough, right? There's just no way around it, especially now. I hope that it gets better, and I'm feeling pretty confident it might get better. But if you're in the running now, like, you gotta be really careful about like anything and everything, right? And I'm talking about, oh God, stupid stuff sometimes, right? Like, because you don't know who's gonna be looking at it, and you don't know who's gonna be in the room with them as they're discussing it, because a lot of companies, what they do is they have multiple people look at the same portfolio, right? So that they get like a non-bias, or like they try to remove as much bias as possible from like the whole process, which is good, right? But let's say that doesn't happen, right? You have a person who, stupid situation, right? I'm bringing up a stupid example. But maybe they got scammed by like an email that had spelling mistakes in their name, and they're just really sensitive to it now, and they're just like, nah. You know, like, or maybe they didn't feel good and they just picked out your spelling mistake and just nah. It's so stupid. It shouldn't happen, but yeah, the point there is that you always want to put your best stuff out there. Like, have it double checked by your mom, by your girlfriend, by your partner, by whomever, right? And just let them go through the whole thing. Like, let them fact check and like point out spelling mistakes, and if something doesn't look good like visually, like tweak it as well, right? Yeah. Because this stuff is important. Yeah, cool. Yeah, breakdowns for this guy. Really curious to see how you approached it. Now we're gonna go through some of the materials as well. Okay, this one isn't as bad. Remember when I told you guys that I don't really like where they like cut out, or like the diagonal cut where you can't see like the full texture? This one isn't as bad because we're talking about tilables, and you can kind of get like a good gist of it because the image is also larger, right? So in this case, I don't mind it too much. Import a sculpted tileable noise and graph overview. Interesting. You made a noise in ZBrush. Okay. It's an interesting technique. Let's actually have a look at some other ones. This transition is interesting. I don't really... Well, in this one it looks quite nice though. Like it's kind of like cement coming up from the seams, but the only thing is that doesn't really come up from the seams, right? But again, that's more art stuff. I will bring up some stuff that I've been noticing in your descriptions here though. So, and it's a small thing, right? Very small. Let me actually make sure that we highlight this a little bit for the stream. Oh, wait. Yeah, so over here, it says this process takes me only 20 to 30 minutes. You gotta be a little bit careful with that. Because what you're also saying at the same time is that this is a low quality thing that I just didn't spend the proper time on, right? So be careful when you say that, because what you want to be doing is, I like your approach, right? Like in short, like I like your approach where you want to be transparent on the amount of time that you spent on it. But you gotta be careful that it's not below a certain threshold where it's like, oh, yeah, this person is not really putting in like the amount of time that would be needed to make it a good material, right? So think about what you put in there as a time estimate, right? And if you think it's too short, leave it out. That's the way that I would approach it. Because what you're doing there, right? Let's say 20 to 30 minutes. Like then I can be like, yeah, you can kind of tell, right? Like this crack runs over this, like, yeah, didn't really split it up between, like the tiles don't really have that much variation on the sides, like there's no attention to detail, right? That's kind of like the steps in the process then, because you kind of give them like what is it, like an excuse to critique your work in that way. So yeah, because they're gonna start looking for mistakes as well. Exactly, Aladdin. 100%. Yeah, and you don't want to give them any excuse to do that, right? And also, let's be honest, right? Like if we look, okay, let's say if we compare this guy compared to this guy, right? I can tell that you put in a lot of time when making this one, and I can tell that you didn't really put in that much time here. So you gotta be really careful with that. Let me make some notes here. So screen. Making a note for that time estimate. Yeah, because like that looks really nice. It is a little bit noisy, and art-wise it can be improved, right? But like comparatively, like this one looks like you put in your time, right? And then I'm gonna stick to the materials for now. So we got some ground moss with stones. Got a little GIF. Rock Alpha, Created in ZBrush, that's cool. I made a single rock alpha in ZBrush and the whole work is done in Quixel Mixer. Oh. Okay. Oh, so you're only using the rock alpha to get like a little bit of a height map in the beginning to work with. Because it honestly doesn't retain too much. It's an interesting little technique, right? To give you like a height map to begin with. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's then made with Quixel Mixer, right? Like, I mean, you say it, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. You're very transparent about it. But yeah. It's not like you completely made that thing yourself then, right? Because I was confused for a second before I read the description, so this is my bad. When, like, in the third step of the GIF, where you see, like, the stones come in, and it's like, whoa, this looks good. But, yeah. It's Quixel Mixer. By the way, for everyone, a tip, try to keep the tutorial... try to keep tutorials work out of your portfolio as well, because they can tell if you did it with a tutorial. So yes, but there's an important caveat to that, like Aladdin. It's very cool that you bring that up though. The important caveat is if you use a tutorial, just mention it, because the biggest issue there is that if you use a tutorial and you don't mention it, like, that's the worst case scenario. But you can add a tutorial to your portfolio and just mention that it is from a tutorial, right? There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. It's just you don't wanna sell something that you've made that's not made by you, right? Like, you don't want to give like any false pretenses. Because I think these two, right? Like, this one for sure is from a tutorial. I think this one is from Daniel Tiger as well. Or like heavily inspired by it. Well, Eric Wiley's good, right? Tutorial link, even in there, free marketing. This is awesome. For me personally, I do watch tutorials, but I do something totally different from it but using similar techniques, but totally different look and feel. Yeah, exactly. That's perfect, right? And look, tutorials, like, I've used tutorials, like, I don't know, sometimes it blows people's minds, but I've used tutorials when doing professional work, right? Like, it's totally normal to use tutorials. Like, oh, I don't know how to do something? Cool. Google it. Cool. Now I know how to do something, right? Like, totally normal, even in a professional setting, when I'm a senior, you know, when you're supposed to know, like, a lot of stuff. Totally fine to use tutorials, right? It's just in this case, when we're talking about portfolios, you should just be like really careful about not false advertising. Reference taken from Daniel Tiger. Yep. It's so interesting that you took reference from a person that already created a material instead of going for the reference that they used. But yeah, looks nice. I think, so this is interesting, right? This technique, if we're talking about your portfolio presentation, right? Like, presented in context. This is so important because this stuff looks awesome. And it not only doesn't it look, oh, you can barely see it. I drew a little heart. Not only does it look awesome, but if you present your work in context, like, you also give an idea of how that is going to be used in a game environment rather than just on a sphere, right? Because a lot of times what's going to happen is you put your material on like an actual cliff or like an actual surface that's going to be used in a game. It's going to look totally different and not work anymore. So present your work in context, right? Always really, really helpful. That's what I love about there's so many ways of doing it, right? But that's what I love about Derek Elshoff's work. Let me just quickly bring him up here. And there's a couple of people that do that, right? But like, let's look at this. Like, how awesome is that? Right? And that's just like, I don't know, a model that's probably not even textured, but like is animated, like comes in with like an animation or something like that, right? And you just have that with like a light shining on your tileable. I mean, look at how cool that is. Just as like a creepy presentation, you know? And then all this kind of stuff, right? Looks really nice. Some other examples here as well, right? Like clean professional presentations. Like this stuff looks really nice. And all it is just like a character with like a weird shader attached to it, right? Like an unlit shader. Not that difficult. But it immediately presents like 1,000 times better. So yeah, keep presentation in mind. Got a map overview here. What I will say here is this map overview is not as helpful as the previous ones because we don't know what we're looking at, right? I mean, obviously we know, but like you want to tag it yourself to make it easier for people to know what they're looking at. So, oh, not BE. Well, to be honest, what are we looking at? So, normal, AO, height, I guess. But you see what I'm saying? Like, and this is roughness. But you see, what I'm saying here, like the second one is kind of like, is this a metallic map? Because normally it's base color, metallic, roughness, normal, AO, right? But you wouldn't use a metallic map for tiles, right? But you just want to remove like all confusion as much as possible. Be as transparent as possible with this stuff. Got the last one here. Or the last material, should I say. I learned this from a course. Okay, cool. So like a lot of coursework, you know, like nothing necessarily wrong with it, but make a little note of it. We're going to talk about it in the recap. Automatic landscape shader. That's cool. So a little bit of text setup. My first ever 3D environment. Huh. Andrew African. Awesome. Okay, so this is also kind of missing like breakdowns, right? So breakdowns, like what did you do in this environment? Because I'm seeing a decent amount of props, right? And I'm wondering if they come from Megascans. I would assume so, right? Because like some of this stuff looks really detailed. It even comes in with like weird LOD issues. So... Oh, it says here, Quixel Megascans, yeah. I would still... What I would do in this case is when you're using any sort of additional props, say, hey, I've used Quixel Megascans for this. And then have a separate image where you showcase like all the meshes that you've made in a separate little overview, right? Super simple, super quick. This is just like a fly through of the thing, right? Wait, is that... Oh my god. That's not your phone number on there, is it? Oh my god. I think we've seen everything then, right? Okay, so, well, yeah, that would be... that would be one thing. Don't put your phone number on there. If that is. Okay, so, little recap. This was also a pretty quick one as well. So we're gonna have a look. Recap. Let's see. First big one. So interesting. I think we're gonna start with like the biggest question that I have, right? Because something dawned on me, like as we were looking through like all this stuff, is what do you want to do? Right? Because the reason why I asked that question is because you say environment art, but then a lot of it is materials, right? So if you still want to focus on environment art, I want to see more props, more environments, more that kind of stuff, right? If you don't want to do environments anymore, I'm expecting this to change to material. Like material artist, right? And for you, that's going to be very important to dive into like why you want to do that change. Because I have the feeling that it's so much more satisfying to do materials for a lot of people, right? Because making an environment is freaking daunting. Like it is tough. So I would say think about that, right? Like, what do you want to do? Like, where do you spend, like, where do you like spending your time? Is it set dressing? Is it actually setting up a level? Or is it making the materials for a level? Or is it making props? Really think about that and then push your portfolio towards that, right? Very important. And that's the biggest question that I have with your portfolio currently, because it seems to be more leaning towards material art than what you say you're leaning towards, which is environment art. So yeah, that's what I would say. Number 2 is tutorials. How would I... Not even tutorials, right? Because, like I said before, I don't care about tutorials. It's more about, like... Oh, we're going a little bit behind the chat again. Oh my god. What that says, you know, no, we're gonna correct it. What's your voice? So this is in reference to the tutorials that you're making, right? Yeah, again, I'll say it again, nothing wrong with following tutorials. But now I'm curious, you've soaked up so much knowledge from those tutorials. I want to see the next couple of materials not made with any tutorials, right? Or like, well, not made following a course step by step. Like if you have to refresh like certain parts, that's fine, right? But try to make something yourself and show me like who you are and what you're interested in as a person, right? And in this with a material, it's like, hey, look, I've made a couple of different materials. You probably know what you want to make now, right? But just pick one that you like, right? And start building it from scratch, like completely from scratch. Experiment, cobble together some learnings that you've learned before, and try to come up with like an interesting solution to like a material that you've made, right? And not follow the tutorial. Yeah, because that's what I want to see now. I know that you can follow a tutorial, but that's kind of easy, right? So I want to know what you've taken from those tutorials and how you put your own spin on it. Like showcase that, right? Like convince me that you can make this stuff by yourself. Number 3 is the breakdowns, right? So the breakdowns were okay-ish for the materials. But I do want to see some more, right? Like put it in context. Let's put that. Let's cheat a little bit. So we've got context and breakdowns. So first of all, the context was what we discussed when it comes to making materials, right? So whenever you make a material, put that into the right context where it would be used and add your own like spin on like a presentation towards it, right? Do something more rather than just putting it on like a sphere. And then the breakdowns part, that comes down to specifically the environment that you made, right? Where you showcase the whole environment. You use Megascans, but I don't know which ones are your materials or like your assets that you've made, and like how you've gone about making them, right? It's very hard to tell like what you specifically did on that project. The same kind of applies to the little carriage that we had, right? Like showcase what you did and how you did it. And then yeah, like as a last thing, right? Like the time estimate that we talked about before, you can add that in here as well. But I think those are the 3 points that I want to kind of stick with. Yeah. I would say in that order, right? In order of importance, like what do you want to do? I think your materials are definitely going into the right direction, right? You're showcasing that you have like a real interest in them. So maybe that's something to consider from your side. And then what is your artistic voice? Like go beyond the tutorials and then the context breakdowns and time estimation stuff. Yeah, I think that's it from my side. Thank you so much for posting your work, Shubham. And you know, like whenever you did like a solid update, send it in again, right? And I'll have a look at it again if you want. And if obviously there's just not too many people in the queue. Yeah. Let me know. I just realized that none of these automated things went out, but whatever. Was supposed to go out. I'll if you're still in the chat, right, and if you're wondering how to submit your portfolio, I'll add a link here. And you can also see like who's up in the running. Like we've done the first 3 today. And then next week we're gonna go through 3 more from the community. And if no one else signs up, we're gonna go through like the live stream participations as well. But yeah, I think that will do it for me this week. For this week of well, this month of portfolio review. Sorry, we do this on a monthly basis. So I'll catch everyone on the second Tuesday normally. This is like today I kind of had to do it because we have big plans tomorrow, so I couldn't really do tomorrow. But normally we do this every second Tuesday of the month. So feel free to add your portfolio to the list and we'll happily have a look at it. And I think that's going to do it for me. So I'm just going to wish everyone a nice day, a nice evening, wherever you are. And stay creative. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye. Oh yeah, let me whisper something in your ear. If you want to become a community member, go to beyondextend.com and sign up. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.